Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan, and one thing that kind of irks me about Total War Warhammer, and indeed a lot of more modern Total War games, is the lack of immersion in terms of unique settlement skins. And I think it's very noticeable with Warhammer when you start looking at cities like Altdorf, where yeah, it looks really bland, yet we have actual detailed maps on how these settlements are supposed to look. Thankfully, it's not an issue anymore, as we've just had a brand new mod dropped by the OvN team, OvN Lost World. What this does is get rather famous areas in the Warhammer Fantasy world and just updates their unique settlement skin to make it look like it should. So Altdorf is a huge, mega sprawling city. Middenheim has the Grand Cannon on top, for example. All of these just make things look a little bit better, because in some cases you'll be going through the Empire and everyone has the main settlement skin being the exact same. Where this mod boasts 120 unique settlement skins, so you can see it with Sartosa, with Skavenblight, and not only that, it's compatible with Immortal Empires Expanded too, just in case you prefer the even larger map. And I mean, who doesn't, right? It's a huge map, it's always better. But yeah, not every settlement has been done, but the main areas in the Warhammer Fantasy world have been updated to give this brand new look. There's also new scenes, which, by the way, a scene is, you know, little things that have been added onto the map to make it more immersive, so you can see more wolves and monsters and stuff like that. You're not going to interact with them, but they just make the world feel a lot more alive. This is really important when it comes to immersion, because you want to see a living, breathing world in a sense, which is quite difficult to do with a static world like Warhammer Fantasy. Now, things get even more interesting when it comes to it, because the mod won't fully work from the very beginning. As you can see here, we do have Musalon, which looks like a basic standard Bretonnian settlement. However, the way this mod works is, as turns progress, settlements that are further away from you will start loading in these unique skins, so you don't have to wait like 5 or 6 minutes when this originally starts in a brand new campaign. And I think this actually works out quite well, because you're not going to be going to Musalon by turn 2 as Karl Franz. You'll get there maybe turn 7, depending if you're pushing into Bretonnia or not, so by that point that's loaded in. And the further away it is, it will start loading in the others in different countries and so on. Which is also important to note, because at the beginning of your first 12 turns or so, you might get a little 1-second stutter, which is just the mod actually working. This is obvious with Skeggi, where as Karl Franz I won't be able to see the new form of Skeggi until a few turns pass, but if I start a fresh new campaign with Maus de Mundi, not only is Hexaltal looking absolutely amazing, but then Skeggi has already turned automatically. It's an impressive feat of modding where it's more location based than anything else. I didn't even think something like this would be possible. Many of these places in the Warhammer Fantasy world have either been described in great detail, or there's art that represents them, and it's something that has always really annoyed me, because again, Altdorf, Kislev is another thing. We've heard about this ice fortress and so on, and yet nothing has ever been done to represent it. So seeing that now active in game like this is just breathtaking. It's great to see, because it's so important to have visual distinctions between major famous settlements in the Warhammer Fantasy world and minor places which just exist to be farming towns or little fortresses that don't really have that much importance, barring that they're practical use. I very much doubt that we're ever going to get this in vanilla, but it's definitely something that is really, really important if you like mods. And if you don't like mods, believe me, stuff like this is just going to elevate your game. These are quality of life improvements, which might sound minor, but they do make the game feel a lot better. To further add to this, there's a lot of increased immersion. You see, a bunch of settlements have the eye icon either next to the resource icon or on it, or just by itself if they don't have a resource. And this just gives you more detail regarding those specific settlements, which means that yeah, you're going to be able to learn. If you like reading a little bit of lore here and there, it's a great way to get used to the world as a whole. CA started to do this at the beginning of Warhammer 3 and a lot during Immortal Empires, but haven't really been doing it a lot lately. We've had a number of DLCs coming in since then, so it's nice to see this being implemented, because you could get the lore through inside of the game rather than going onto the Wikipedia and so on, or reading through the books. It's not everything, obviously, but the idea is you've seen this cool settlement. Maybe you want to learn a little bit bit more about it, because it's always kind of interesting, especially when you start seeing some cool designs. Hell, even for some of them that haven't really been updated, we'll also have some information. So you're going to be getting a lot of info regarding the Warhammer Fantasy world as a whole, and that's super important because, again, Warhammer Fantasy lore is very fractured in terms of where the lore is found. You might have to go into a Cubicle 7 book, you might have to go into older Warhammer Fantasy roleplay. Most of these books have been long out of print, and believe me, someone messaged me recently about wanting to try and find a copy of Tamokon, you know, the Throne of Chaos book, and it's like 200 quid on eBay, you know? These things are increasingly rare to find. So obviously, like this, it's just a better way of learning the lore, because you're going in without having to spend a stupid amount of cash, and you're just having fun learning about the settlements whilst you're playing the game. It's just a really big important part, I think, about a game when it's based on a fantasy IP. Lastly, it's important to note that yes, not every settlement is 100% in representation of the lore. A bunch of settlements just never really had that type of illustration or even description, despite being so important. So what the OvN team has done is try recreate or create something as faithfully as they could imagine it. And we know the OvN Lost Factions team, they're a team that is heavily dedicated to the lore with pure respect for the IP. We've seen that with the factions that they've worked on, even when they've had to create their own things, like for example when it came to Araby, Albion, and other stuff, and obviously a lot of stuff that's still in Warhammer 2 that hasn't been ported into Warhammer 3. So it's definitely a great representation of what is expected and what people could imagine themselves if they were the ones creating it, right? Which, again, sometimes this type of stuff just feels better, right? I've been keeping an eye on this mod since they announced it a while back, but it hasn't come out until literally today, which is the time that I'm recording this video. It's something that I've been super hyped for because, again, I love Immersion. I think it's really, really important. There's a lot of quality of life mods that you can get, which just add to the game to make it feel so much better, and it's a big reason why I keep playing, even when we're still on droughts, which, let's be honest, they become kind of brutal lately. This mod itself can be found in the description below. I highly recommend checking it out. There's a bunch of information on the Steam page too, with some other changes that have come in, like new minor faction, some settlements being renamed, and just general information. There are no maps, like campaign battle maps and so on. For that, you know, you've got FS Ranger and obviously the Return of GCCM, also produced by the same dude, but yeah, this is something that you're definitely going to want. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below regarding this, and let's start a bit of a discussion. I know this might not be the most important mod for people, but again, other people will definitely appreciate it. So have a good day, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon. I've got something in the works which is going to be very different to my normal content on the channel, possibly for end of July, start of August. But I think you guys are going to like it, so I'm going to go back to working on that.